So, the Taco Tuesday baptism battle, how about it?
Yeah, man. I mean, that was a really I don't even know how to fully how, that was a mess. Let me say it that way. That was really a mess. I walked in there thinking that Taco was going to put up a little bit more of a fight. Uh,
You just laid down
mainly,
and died.
I mean, mainly in the sections that were the subject of the debate. Talking about Acts 2:38, talking about 1 Peter 3:21, and those types of things. But he really didn't want to address anything that I
Yeah.
anything that I said. He made a lot to do about exactly what I might pause for a second and continue on that point later. But I saw someone say, why did Jake spend so much time talking about what Taco could say, all this kind of stuff, preempting that a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just decided to do that. That was just a personal choice that I made, and other debaters have made that choice as well. Um, but I did that in part because I really was confident that a lot of the things that I said were going to come up in his actual discussion, and they did. And I thought I kind of pre-answered them in my opening statement, but Taco clearly didn't feel it fully.
Yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, but going back to what I was saying, it was frustrating because I would make these arguments, these very clear arguments in my mind that Acts 2:38 is very clearly saying that Peter's saying that one repents and is baptized, and as a result of that, you receive the forgiveness of your sins. But he's wanting to kind of go into all the peripheral text, which is in the context. I grant him that. He kept saying context. He kept saying, I'm taking you to the context. Yeah, you're taking me to the context, but you're not dealing with the text. That was kind of my takeaway from it. With many
Yeah.
of the passages that were brought up. Thank you, Preston. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you were loud. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I was just blown away that. Well, by the way, can you give me his thoughts on Acts 2:38? What was his exegesis of Acts 2:38?
Essentially, his view of Acts 2:38 is well, he doesn't want to touch Acts 2:38. What he wants to do is he wants to jump down to verse 41 and say those who accepted his message were baptized. And so in his mind, he wants to make the point that those who accepted the message are those who are being saved, and connect that with Romans 10:9 and 10, and say, boom, right there. That's the answer in context. And I'm like, you just jumped out of the context. You just jumped over to Romans 10 to make your point over here. No,
Oh,
what you
yeah.
have to do is look at the grammar, look at what Peter is saying and claiming in verse 38. Because keep in mind, he's wanting to talk about salvation, which that's the whole subject of the debate. But he's wanting to talk about, well, this clearly saves, but he doesn't want to address the one other verse. Well, I guess there's another verse 21, but the other verse in the text that's talking about salvation, that's talking
Yeah.
about the forgiveness of sins. And so I just thought that was really odd.
Yeah, I just thought it was like very telling that you went to 2:38. And by the way, sorry, I'm not trying to do other things. I'm trying to get my light on. I can still
You're
hear
okay.
you. But yeah, and there's a difference in explaining the context, but not exegeting the text. Like at some point, I even super chatted. I rarely super chat. I super chatted a little bit, but clearly explained Act 2:38. And he read it and then just kept reading. He wasn't gonna just say what Acts 2:38 means. I mean, man, we all agree that Acts 2:38 has a context, right?
Yeah.
But but that's different than just avoiding what Acts 2:38 says.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it really was a dodge job.
Oh
And
yeah,
even in his he posted a highlight reel today, and in the highlight reel he's got a couple portions from the Q&A section, which I will say the Q&A section, I'm not totally happy with my performance there. At that point I was, man, when you debate, I don't think people realize how tired you get in the middle of those debates. And
oh
so by the
yeah.
Q&A section I was kind of getting a little irritable, and I was starting to lose my temper a little bit in certain moments. Uh, Not fully, but I wasn't totally happy with the way I kind of answered certain things in the Q&A section. But he took lots of comments or lots of clips from that Q&A section to make this kind of highlight reel. But the crazy thing was that even in some of those sections where he's like clipping me, I'm like, bud, you didn't do well right there. You didn't answer the question well. And
Yeah,
you're wanting to sit here and kind of frame. And so it was very odd, very odd.
no, I noticed that too. Um, so talk to us about his ability to articulate First Peter 3:20 and 21
Mhm.
and your Greek argument about Hydro. Talk to us about that.
Okay, so in First Peter 3, uh, my a lot of my arguments from First Peter 3 were kind of assuming he'd make certain arguments. Uh, but my point in First Peter 3 is that the text is just very plain. When Peter says baptism now saves you, it's very obviously referring to water baptism. You see that in the context. Verse 20, what is the water in reference here? It's the water of the flood. And so I asked the question, which we really didn't. I really wish we would have talked about this a little bit more. Uh, but the question I asked in my opening was, why would Peter use a water-based Old Testament story on a dry baptism? And he never really touched that. He never acknowledged that, really. I should have followed up on that because I think that's a really important question. But he doesn't acknowledge that. But it's clear from the context. Beyond that, grammatically, when you look at the structure of this passage, uh, uh, the word water, huditos, is connected with the word ha, or ho, however you want to say it, uh, in the passage, meaning the water is connected to baptism here with the preposition. I think it's preposition uh, ha. Anywho, uh, right now my brain's barely functioning after that debate, but it's connected with ha, and so grammatically there is no separating the baptism here from the water. The baptism is a water baptism, and so that
But
was
wait,
one of my
but,
first points.
but
Yeah.
wait, Jake. Not the little dirt from the flesh. Clearly, it's not the water, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and the point I made from that was that if he wants to make that argument from the not but phrase, then the but, which I know lots of people got a lot of laughs out of the but section, or me saying the but section in the comment section. But if his argument is true, that but section needs to clearly be talking about spirit baptism. And the thing is, you look at other passages in the book of First Peter. I think it's First Peter 2, talking about spiritual stones and things like that. Point being, it's not uncommon in the language of First Peter for Peter to elaborate on these analogies that he's using. Uh, and so, if it's the case that he's saying it's not water baptism, it is spirit baptism, there was a way that would have been consistent with the writing of Peter, uh,
yeah.
by saying, in the but section, not, or something about spirit baptism. It's not water, but it's spirit. But he doesn't acknowledge that, and he wants to just kind of hone in on that first section.
So what? My question is, why in the world would Peter say not of the removal of dirt from the flesh? Well, obviously, that spirit baptism
Mhm.
Obviously, there's no connection to water. Would Taco say, like, well, maybe Peter doesn't want you to be confused in the analogy of verse 20, so he says, but I'm not talking about water baptism. How would you think that works? Like, why the clarifier if it's not water?
I think again, it's how the phrase is functioning grammatically in the section, and so is the phrase functioning as a uh, is it adjectival phrase, meaning it's modifying the type of baptism, or is it an adverbial phrase modifying how it saves? So is it modifying the kind of baptism, or is it modifying the function of baptism? And I'd say that there are plenty of passages that seem to indicate that it's modifying the function of baptism. I mean, if you just want a really kind of interesting look at something, in the NLT, it actually interprets it this way, which is surprising. So it says, "And that water is a picture of baptism, which now saves you, not by removing dirt from your body, but as a response to God from a clear conscience." And so, in the text of the NLT translators, they view this phrase, the "not but" phrase, as adverbial, modifying saves, and not adjectival, modifying the kind of baptism. And so that would be my clear argument, is that if that seems to be the function of it, that seems to be the force of the grammar. But here's the thing, I could have articulated that a little bit more, which I articulated it in my opening. But even if Taco wanted to follow through with that a little bit later, he wasn't going to touch that with a 9.5 foot pole. He didn't want to touch any of the grammar questions I had.
So, what do you think Blanche should asked this when we were in Acts 2:38? Oh, I
It's
was
okay.
just asking, but so, why do you think that Taco gave some of the typical Acts 2:38 arguments? We didn't hear the because of argument. We didn't hear the second person, third person
Mhm.
argument. We just we just heard a well we heard nothing on
Yeah,
activity. Well, why wouldn't he try and obviously we don't know Taco's mind, but I was
sure.
wondering why not give the typical activity rebuttals?
Well, the way he argued it in the debate was consistent with the way he's argued it in previous videos. And in one video, he was on with a guy named Dr. Costa, Tony Costa, and Tony Costa gave the arguments that I was expecting. You know, the ace argument, the singular and plural argument, all those things, which I had really good arguments for. Uh, and Taco, in that video, he's sitting there nodding along to it. And so Taco's aware of those arguments. I think to some degree, Taco just doesn't want to touch the text. After looking at it and experiencing it in the moment, Taco doesn't want to touch Acts 2:38 substantively. And I saw that he made or in the video that he made on YouTube in a comment, he is responding to someone who's giving pushback on, I guess, our behalf. And even in that response, it's like he's dodging it a little bit. And I think he knows that, one, he doesn't have any good arguments there, but two, that I was going to come prepared. Here is a list of every occurrence of ace in the Legacy Standard Bible, the LSB, the one that he claims is the most accurate Bible translation. I read through all of them, and this is the translation that kind of caught some flack for in a footnote for Acts 2:38, including the footnote that it could be translated as "because of." And so I went through and I was like, okay, well, are these translators or editors? I think they're more properly referred to as editors. There you go. Uh, are they fully consistent in using "because of"? And so there are typically about 4 or 5 passages that, at least in BDAG, they view as not problematic, but they view them as very weird instances. Matthew 3:11, your repentance, repenting at the preaching of Jonah, and kind of what that kind of means, and so on and so forth. Well, I looked through the LSB, and you know what's interesting? They don't include that footnote on any of the noted problem passages. They only include it for Acts 2:38. And in their translation, again, I read through every occurrence of ace in the LSB. You know what they don't do? They don't translate it because of. And so I just thought it was really interesting that Taco just didn't want to talk about any of that stuff. And I think part of it was that he knew there was great weakness in making that argument. Yeah, Preston said that he clearly avoided it. He did. Like I in my cross, to kind of give you some of what I'm thinking, you know, some people in the comment section, they were saying that I needed to be more aggressive in that moment or what. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to let him you know, back himself into a corner. I'm going to let him hurt his position by just letting him do some of the talking there. And I thought it was clear. I mean, like, the more I pressed, it was clear. And I thought I had said enough to where it's like, okay, obviously this guy doesn't actually want to talk about the subject. So that was some of my thought process there. But yeah, he was not about it. He was not about the actually debating the substance here.
So what contradictions did you catch Taco in, or did he change at all in the debate, mid-debate, or
Yeah,
what's going on there? I got the inside scoop, but I'm being an interviewer here. But
for sure.
uh,
So the structure of my cross, the goal of it at least, and part of it was a little difficult because he had just said so much of like he had answered so many of the questions I had already asked him or that I was planning on asking him, and I was just a little taken aback by just like how pompous he was in some of it. And so I don't know, I got to the cross-ex and I was like, man, this is crazy. But the first half of my cross-ex, the goal was to show how bad his thinking was. And the second half of the cross-ex, the goal was to demonstrate how or to dig into the baptismal texts and to show inconsistency there in his view. And so the first half, I'm talking about, you know, the LSB. I'm going to talk about how, you know, he didn't want to admit the fact that his big thing is swapping spirit baptism out for water baptism whenever it's convenient for him. But he very clearly does that. I've watched all his baptism content. I've watched so many of his videos. That's his consistent argument. And whether he wants to admit that in the middle of a debate, that's what he does. And so one part that I thought was really interesting was that in Matthew 6, or not Matthew, in Mark 16:16, in a video, he just kind of threw it up on the screen when referring to spirit baptism. And I was like, do you think that's spirit baptism? And then in a TikTok live, some people asked him, so is Matthew 28:19 referring to spirit baptism or water baptism? And he claimed water baptism. And I'm like, hold up. So you have these two parallel texts. One is referring obviously to water baptism, and you admit that. The other is also very clearly referring to water baptism, but you want to say it's spirit baptism. And so I'm like, okay, I've got him right here. And so I tried to kind of lay the foundation a little bit to demonstrate that inconsistency. And I think I did that. You know, ultimately he's really good at kind of acting as if he doesn't feel it in the moment, but like I could tell that he was a little frustrated by the fact that he was that inconsistent, and you kind of saw that later on when he changes his position on Mark 16. And so he kind of gives this argument, and then I ask him, you know, exegetically from the passage in Mark 16, like, where do you get the idea that the baptism here is referring to spirit baptism? And he pontificates about his own system. He doesn't give any clear evidence from the passage. He just pontificates, well, like essentially it's referring to salvation, so that obviously means it's referring to spirit baptism. And I'm like, that's bunk, and it's bogus. What I thought was very interesting was that in the cross-ex, I got him to admit that the condemnation section baked into the idea of belief would also he would also include baptism, whatever baptism it is that Mark is talking about. He wouldn't want to say that phrase exactly, but that's essentially his point. And so he said that. He said that. And then in the Q&A section, he starts arguing as if Mark 16:16 is referring to water baptism, and that the condemnation clause in Mark 16 is a demonstration of, clearly it's belief that saves, it's baptism
Yeah.
doesn't save. And I'm like, whoa. And I wasn't able to make the point because we were running out of time. But I pointed at the camera and I was like, notice what he just said. He was just inconsistent. And so, yeah, that was one of the biggest glaring inconsistencies there. But another thing that I was able to do in the debate that I was really happy with was some of the points about the LSB. I'd heard him make so many comments about the NIV, which, whether or not you like the NIV, neither here nor there, but he'd made many defamatory statements about the NIV and how the LSB was just this standard. And so what I did was I emailed William Varner, and I emailed Abner Chow, which Abner Chow is the president of the seminary that was involved in making the LSB, and William Varner is a noted editor and translator for the LSB. And so I emailed them and I was like, hey, so this is Taco's typical argument. He typically says, that the term water is referring to spirit baptism and not water baptism. And he seems to want to flip-flop whenever it seems best to him. I said, is this accurate? And I gave them both a couple quotes from the Theological Dictionary, the New Testament, which says that, typically the term baptism means water baptism unless it's otherwise modified. I also quoted Daniel Wallace because he says the same thing. And both of them got back to me, which Abner Chow, he did some really weird stuff with 1 Peter 3:21 at the end of the email. But both of them in their emails said, yeah, no, the term means water baptism unless it's otherwise modified. They agreed with the rest of scholarship. And so what blew my mind was that here you have the scholars of the most accurate Bible translation in the mind of Taco, who disagree with Taco on his arguments here. And so I just thought that was really significant. And I don't know if he felt that in the moment, but...
Well, you're just relying on me and not on the word of God, didn't you know?
I guess so, man. I'm just, I just won't touch scripture. I won't touch context. Which I will say, there are two arguments that I've been receiving, or two critiques from Taco's side. The first being that I don't like context. And the second, which I think is funny, was that I was being fed answers in the comment section and through an earpiece, which I thought was so funny.
I think that speaks to the weakness of Taco. If
I think to some degree.
people are like, he's cheating, this is why this is why he's beating up Taco. Of course they wouldn't say that, but your biggest critique from probably your biggest opponent that you know, maybe I'm not in the know, Jeremiah Ortier, he's a big dog. His only critique was, boy, Jake looked nervous. That was his only critique.
Yeah. Which, here's the thing. This was my second, moderated debate. And, Taco's a very popular individual. He has 250,000 followers on TikTok. A growing, in the first, when we agreed to debate, he had 30,000 subs on YouTube. And by the time we debated, he had 60,000 subs on YouTube. So in the span of a month or so, he doubled his YouTube audience. So point being, this guy's a growing, he's popular on YouTube or popular on TikTok, and he's growing popularity on YouTube. And so I was, it was a little nerve-wracking. At the same time, what was I saying? Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking. At the same time, there were only a couple moments that I was nervous in a, or how am I even trying to say that? Overall, I wasn't that nervous. It was just certain, there were only a couple questions that, if by nervous he means that there were certain things that caught me off guard, there was like one or two. Other than that, like the nerves I had were more or less because of the moment, the fact that we're on a live stream. This is a big debate. Like I'm wanting to do
Yeah.
well.
No.
But overall, I don't think that impacted my performance in a negative way. Like, in terms of the substance of the debate, uh, I think it went well.
Yeah.
I'm pleased with my performance.
Me mentioning that was not to critique you.
Sure.
It was to show that the only thing that they could say was Jake was nervous. They couldn't critique your arguments I asked Jeremiah objectively who he thought won, and he said Taco. I said that bunk. He knows that. Well, even if you disagree with Jake, you know who did better. Like, I
Well,
would tell you if you got tore up, I would
mm,
tell you, hey, you got the truth that you got tore up.
for sure.
But
And like you know, it's so difficult, kind of balancing some of these things. Because I don't want to sound prideful in any regard. I'm just a man. And I have plenty of things in that debate that I regretted. But like walking out of that debate, I really did feel like uh, the onus was on him to respond to my arguments and to deal with those arguments, and he didn't really want to do that. He had all uh, uh, these places that he wanted to go. He wanted to go to all the faith alone texts, and these random, obscure, peripheral texts regarding the doctrine of baptism. But overall, I was just a little shocked by how he just wasn't game to actually, debate. Addressing a couple comments in the comment section, uh, Savion sent me a message. I appreciate that, Savion. Let me know where you sent it at, so I can know if it's on here. Uh, well, I'll look for it. Yeah. Robbie said, he said that I made y'all proud. Well, I appreciate that, Robbie. I really do. And then Preston said, for sure. I appreciate the kind words, guys. Yeah.
you, I was. I'm sorry that there's not kind of a order to my questions.
You're
It's
okay.
like
You're all good, man.
whatever. Uh, but so talk about your opening. The typical opening is Act 238, Mark 16, 16, and then you go over the Bible. What made you hone in specifically on Peter and his consistent message?
I wanted to give my opening a narratival feel. I wanted it to be something where the audience could follow it, and I just felt as if arguing from the life of Peter and from his consistent preaching, uh, uh, I felt like that would just make for a much better argument and a more
Yeah.
structured argument than maybe some of the arguments that we typically tend to make.
Mm.
And also, like, there are so many baptismal texts. It's, in talking to my dad, in preparation for his debate, we talked, man, how do you, what passage do you pick? You only have a certain amount of time, and there's so many baptismal texts, and there's so many things from all these baptismal texts. What do you do? Like, which ones do you pick? Which ones do you exclude? And
Right.
so it's difficult, but I thought, by limiting it to the preaching of Peter and his specific doctrine of baptism, I felt like that would be the best use of our time. And it hit several of the points that I think, some of the most important passages, and the passages that I thought in my mind, these will lead to good cross-ex questions. So Matthew 28, one, I don't think that's a passage that's used enough, but I also thought, okay, he's inconsistent on Mark 16. I can bounce off of there from that. Acts 2:38, that's just kind of the standard text that you go to. And then 1 Peter 3:21, he's made a lot a lot of arguments about that passage, and so I really wanted to do that. The only text that I wish I would have been able to include in my opening was John 3:5, because he said a lot about John 3:5, and that's typically the passage he argues when talking about the topic of baptism. And man, I dug into that for I don't know how long. Like, lots of people said that I was cheating, that I was reading the comments, looking for answers, and that my dad was giving me answers through an earpiece. These were just my headphones to listen to Taco. I did not sleep much in this debate prep because I was doing a lot of reading. I was reading all the scholarly journals I could get my hands on. I was reading all the commentaries I could get my hands on. When I say I prepped for this debate, I prepped for this debate. I really did. And one of the topics that I really dug into was John 3. And man, John 3 does not help Taco one iota. It is so bad. And I wish we could have gotten to some of the arguments or a couple of the quotes I had, which I realized that he wouldn't accept any of the quotes I had from the scholars because in his mind, in a debate setting, scholars aren't our authority, all that kind of stuff. But within some of these commentaries, they are literally brushing Taco's arguments off to the side, like not even considering them as worthy of talking about. D.A. Carson kind of does that in his commentary. And in J. Ramsey Michael's commentary on John's gospel, he says that's like a popular level argument. And by popular, he's not meaning it's a good argument. He's saying this is what kind of popular level apologists who have no clue what they're talking about make. And so, and he gave lots of arguments against that interpretation. And so, man, I wish we could have gotten more into that the point about John 3, but we just weren't able to. But yeah, that's kind of my thinking to kind of go back and answer the actual question you asked. That was my thinking for opening it the way I did, and what I wish I could have added to my opening.
Right. Well, I don't think we're taking guests. Justin wanted to come up unless you want.
I'm fine with Justin coming up. Yeah.
Sure. But, hey Justin. So I wanted to ask you on the topic of John 3.
Sure.
What? How do people think that everybody is one half entering the kingdom then automatically? Like if you gotta be born of water and the spirit, and that is any other fluid. Does everybody just have half of the conditions to make it into the kingdom of heaven automatically?
That would seem to be the implied argument that half of people would have what's needed to enter into the kingdom of heaven.
It's like nonsense. You gotta be born to. It's like you gotta have. Well, I gotta put you gotta wear clothes to enter heaven. Oh, okay, well, we all wear clothes. That's kind of dumb. Hey, Justin. What
What's
are
up,
your
gents?
thoughts?
How are you, man?
I'm good. I in between appointments here, so I don't have long. But I haven't gone back and watched every single part of it. I was in and out during the debate, but just a few things stood out to me. Jake, when you were talking about, I loved how you pivoted mid debate when you were talking about Mark 16 and then Matthew 28. And you found where he actually agreed with Matthew 28 being water. I mean, first you pointed out the inconsistency to view Matthew 28 as water and Mark 16 as not water. But then when you got him, when you started talking about Matthew 28 being water, you just hammered home into the possession of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I think he saw what you were saying. I mean, I think you could tell
Okay.
it. He could see the point that you were making, but he could see how it was kind of the nail in the coffin. That if he agreed that it was water baptism and it did make you become the possession of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, that would just completely, lose the debate for him. So you could see he was just kind of stumbling. I saw you were just baring your teeth down on that point, like you weren't going to move on,
Yeah.
which I thought was good.
Well,
What he did agree at the very end of the debate. He did say maybe it was a mistake, but he did say on record that you can. He said Matthew 28:19-20 had something to do with adoption.
he did. He admitted that. And in that moment, I was like, hold up. What did you just say? And then he wanted to very quickly, move on. But he saw exactly what I was pointing out. And it was very interesting the things that he conceded to and the things he wasn't willing to concede to. I made a lot to do about the phrase "in the name of," clearly showing a transfer of ownership being, becoming the possession of God. And that was clear. And I asked him it, and he didn't want to admit it. And then when I brought it to the fact that he waited 11 years to get baptized, 11 years to get baptized. And I said, were you in the possession of, or were you the possession of the Trinity in those 11 years that you waited to be baptized? And what do you have to say? He kind of fumbled and did his thing. But then by the time I wanted to argue the grammar for making a disciple, he was very happy to kind of concede the point that he wasn't a disciple in those 11 years. Or I guess he said he was a disciple, but then he's kind of saying he wasn't, which that's just kind of the nature of that debate. It was double speak. So,
Yeah.
what are y'all laughing about? What's going on in the
We're
comments?
laughing about the chair analogy.
Sorry.
Let me tell you what. Shout out to Brandon Edwards, because Brandon Edwards messaged me, and I've been meaning to also, for the record, if anyone's messaged me and has given me or just talked to me about the debate, congratulating or anything like that, I really appreciate that. Sorry if I haven't gotten to your message, especially those in the comment section. I plan on getting to those. Sorry, my wife's pregnant at home, and we're really in a busy season up at the church. But I plan on getting to everything. But Brandon messaged about the chair analogy, because he uses that when debating, on college campuses. And so that was on my mind. And then he said the chair analogy. And as soon as he said chair, I'm like, I'm about to just I'm about to lay down the hammer. And so he's giving the chair analogy, and I'm leaning over, and I'm just like, oh, so your work. Like, do you trust the chair if you don't sit down? And did my little sip thing there. I was so happy with that moment. I was, if there was a prideful moment, maybe that was the prideful moment in the debate where I just kind of felt like, man, mic drop.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he totally blew up his own argument and his own analogy in that
He at
moment.
least should have stayed consistent with it and been like, no, I don't have to sit down in the chair. I can just look at the chair and believe that the chair will hold me up, and that's good enough. But he actually proved your point when he actually sat, like he got up a little bit and sat down in the chair and was like, no, you got to sit down in the chair.
Oh, I know.
Thank you. You proved his point for him.
Well, then, later on in the debate, the chair comes up again, and, he tries to reframe it. And again, by that point, I'm tired. That was kind of towards the end of the Q&A, and I'm tired. And so I'm trying to, press him on the chair one more time, because he's wanting to reframe and say, well, he would never trust a man. He only trusts God. And so then I said, I forget exactly what I said, but I said, God came to earth in Jesus, whatever, however I said it. But he was trying to get me there on some stupid Trinitarian thing, as if I'm a Unitarian or something like that. And I'm like, hold up, you're shifting the debate there. My point is that if it's Jesus saying trust fall, and you don't do the trust fall, do you really trust Jesus? And the thing is, he saw it. He's just trying to reframe and scramble and get out of what he knows was a devastating blow due to a really poor analogy that he brought up.
Taco's really not anything special when it comes to debating, and I don't mean to be mean, but like if you have 60,000 followers and you make all these videos claim to be something and you fumble that badly in a debate when you're not debating yourself, then I'm sorry, you just need to sit down and you're not this big shot everybody thinks you are. I'm sorry. Uh,
I think he
but
kind of underestimated Jake, to be honest. Like, I mean, his videos leading up to it, he wasn't promoting it. It seemed like he wasn't that worried about it. And then he made that video a couple of days before the debate, was like, oh, you have a little debate coming up. You know, this guy harassed me, and, you know, I'm just going to kind of like nonchalantly played it off like, hey, I'm just going to do this little debate. And I think that showed up, you know, in the, like, again, we've seen plenty of debates. Both of you guys have seen plenty of debates. People that, we, definitely disagree with, but you can tell that they're prepared. I mean, they make good arguments. They respond to your arguments well. And I think it was just somewhat a lack of preparation on his side. But I was just going to point out too, like, when that the Acts 238 skirting around stuff, but like when it was asked in the Q&A, someone said like, hey, can you directly address Acts 238? Yeah.
that's me.
Oh, so CJ. So he said, can you directly address Acts 238? And I knew
He's
the very first thing he was going to do is not specifically address Acts 238. So then he goes to, a few verses prior to Acts 238, which again, if you're trying to get we're not saying don't get the context, but even if you get the context, you still have to have an interpretation of Acts 238. Like you still have to have an exegesis of it. And so, which I just don't think he was willing to do. And so I just thought it was funny. Like I knew as soon as CJ asked that, the very first word out of his mouth was going to be anything other than Acts 2:38.
Oh, absolutely. Like it was pretty bad.
I had one. I don't know why the super chat never made it, but I think the comment got somehow didn't comment, but I sent money. But I said, Marco, please make him address X2 through the end this
Yeah.
time. Like, I called on the moderator, kind of being facetious, but Marco, what? Make him answer.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing, because I mean, even Big Mike in the comment section, which, I won't say that. He's saying he was smart reading you the context of the received word and tying it to the washing in Ephesians. And he also said you just don't see it though. Well, keep in mind, I literally addressed a lot of that argument in my opening. Like I addressed the argument that he made and the whole point that he's making in my opening. He just didn't fully see it. And he didn't see how I refuted it in my opening. In my opening, how did I say? I actually don't. Let me pull that up real quick. I said when you trace out when you trace out the ones being baptized are also being added, and the ones being added are being saved, it's clear that baptism contextually forgives sins. Again, I hammered that from the beginning. Taco didn't, I don't know if Taco didn't document that or whatever, but like appealing to verse 41 and appealing to those who received the word, it doesn't make sense of the grammar in verse 38. And we can, puff all the smoke we want. We can do all that, but I find this appeal to context to be like, asking for a sandwich and getting 2 pieces of bread without any meat. It's like, okay, so you've given me the outer context, you've given me the bread, but you haven't given me the thing that we're looking at. You haven't given me the substance. And so I thought that was just, all these appeals, I just thought it was really frustrating. And like, if there was a moment where I was going to lose my temper, it was in some of those moments because, man, I was trying to hammer him there, but.
Yeah. Hey, guess what I did?
What do you do?
Context.
Oh yeah, a bunch of hand waving. Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
I
But
I understand appealing to the context, but like like you said, you have to give something for the text. Like, there is no way he would do the same thing in John 3:16. I
no.
guarantee, I guarantee you he would go word by word, verse by verse, and actually explain John 3:16 based on the context. But
Well, what's funny is I saw a video of his where he's explaining salvation by faith alone from some passage in Romans, uh, and he's reading the Greek text. He tries to quote it, which actually what he does is he's not actually quoting the Greek text. What he's doing is I think he's using Blue Letter Bible. And so instead of all the forms actually found within the Greek text, what he's doing is he's quoting uh, the term as it's initially written in whatever lexicon is being used. And so it's not like he's reading the text, but like it's not actually what the text is saying. But he's quoting that and he's appealing to grammar for all these other things. But when it comes to this moment, he wants to dodge grammar. He wants to dodge, the original language here. Uh, but also, you want to talk about context, man. Let's talk about the context I had in First Peter 3. Man, I nailed him down with that. I did, and he didn't want to acknowledge it.
I don't know. He didn't. I don't think he went into debate. Like, he came to a debate, but he didn't want to play ball on anything. Like, he
Which was
wasn't
unfortunate. Like
right.
I was expecting, like when I asked him to debate, when I harassed him, uh, which was crazy. Uh, I was wanting a good substantive debate. I was wanting to kind of dig into these things. And again, I was prepared. I had uh, Big Mike said, yes, you baptized him in First Peter 3. I did, and he didn't want to touch it. Uh, but I was prepared. I had all these arguments laid out. I had all these quotations. I had done a lot of work. And then it was just kind of like, no thanks, which is frustrating,
Yeah. These are not the droids you're looking for. I'm sorry.
essentially. Yeah. If I
So,
can say one thing, though, or
guys,
actually, never mind. Go ahead, CJ.
if you want, you can wrap it down. No, we've
I want
all.
to spend some time talking about some of the claims that he was making before the debate, uh, because I think, you know, uh, Justin pointed out that he only announced the debate a couple days before we were set to debate.
It was
Um,
a day before. A day before.
yeah, something like that. Like it was quite frankly ridiculous, and it made me frustrated. At the same time, I'm not here like whatever you want to do, man. Sure. But it seemed a little disrespectful to me, especially considering the fact that I had, done it prior to that, and he just kind of did it on his own time. But in his pre-debate video, he spent a lot of time just making these small jabs, kind of framing what the debate was for his audience. He called it a little small debate, which hey, it's fair. He said I harassed him, and that is just I did nearly like I nearly flipped my lid whenever he said that at the end of the debate, because I didn't harass the guy. Like at that point you're imputing my character, like that I would be someone who would harass you, that I would threaten you, that I would in my comments uh, make you feel unsafe, because that's ultimately the language being used. You can talk about you can talk about that however you want the word, but like the word communicates a level of one's safety is at risk here, and I
I'm
didn't
with
do that. Sure. And I didn't do that. I messaged him several times. I did. Because he has 250,000 followers and 60,000 followers on YouTube. And I've got 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. And so, point being, he made this really, really horrendous video about Churches of Christ. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I want a dialogue. Um, and in fact, uh, in a moment, I'll read my message to Taco that I sent several times to show you kind of what it was that he was harassed with. But I mean, I just found that to be really upsetting. The fact that he kept saying that. So here's what I said to Taco. I said, "Hey Taco, I just saw your video critiquing Churches of Christ. I'm a minister in Churches of Christ, and my dad and I run a YouTube channel called The Progressive Primitivist. I was reaching out to see if you wanted to have a public debate on the topic of baptism. I've already had one formal debate, and I'm currently preparing for my second debate that will take place in March. That was a debate that fell through with another opponent. If you're not interested in a debate but would prefer a more open dialogue, I'd be happy to do that as well. I realize a cold DM like this sounds a little gruff, but I promise I'm not. Looking forward to hearing back from you." I'm sorry. Yeah, that was my comment. That was the harassment that I forced onto Taco, and so I found it just to be really upsetting because I didn't do that, and also Taco really put a lot of weight onto that. I haven't really talked about how much Taco has lied kind of throughout this whole situation, but Taco's lied pretty consistently in his presentation of some of this material and presentation of the facts. In his pre-debate call-out video, or in his pre-debate video, he claimed that he only knew of my debate call-out video after I was on a live stream with him. And granted, on the live stream, I'm getting his attention. I'm messaging. But at one point, he acknowledges me, and I say, I've challenged you to a debate. I made a whole video about it, X, Y, and Z. And someone else makes a similar comment, and he reads both of them on camera, and then he says, "Oh wait, are you the blonde kid?" And so right there is an admission that he saw my debate call out. He saw it. He was able to identify me by having blonde hair, which my hair is technically pretty blonde, or it's technically like a really, really dark blonde, but it's still blonde. And I've gotten confused as being a blonde, especially with the lights here. But point being, he was able to identify me based on the information that I gave him. And so it was clear that he had seen the video prior to when he said he saw the video. And then a couple of other things. Like it was just like, point being, in that video, he was framing it as if I'm just this big rough person trying to force him into this debate. I'm a small person as well. I'm a young guy. Anywho, it was just really frustrating. It was very frustrating.
Yes, he did, John. Sorry. Yeah, that would be frustrating. So is there anything else you could think of you want to talk about? Did I hit everything we said we were going to talk about?
I do want to acknowledge that Marco said that Taco committed the flirting versus harassment fallacy, which is a joke. I thought that was pretty funny. But no, man, I mean, unless there's anything else you want to talk about in the debate, like I said, I approached this debate with much prayer. Yeah, in between Sundays. Honestly, W moderated for the entire debate as well. Yeah, shout out to Marco. I need to spend some time talking about Marco. Marco has been the best with this whole situation. My name's Jake, Miss Vicky. Marco has been great throughout the whole thing, in helping me get this debate, in his moderation, he was great. I also, Marco and I, we talked a little bit, and I kind of told him some of my plans, and him and I talked through, different debate strategies and things like that. And I thought in the debate, he was very fair towards Taco as well. In those comment sections, And in that debate, that pre-debate video that Taco did, he impugned Marco's character as well, kind of claiming that this is Jake's buddy who is harassing him, who's harassing me, and who is likely kind of implying that he's not going to be a fair debate moderator. And Marco was just totally above board, really great, really pleasant in all messages and things like that. And so shout out to Marco. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey Marco, if I can get a debate, I'm coming to you. I want it to be on In Between Sundays.
Yeah,
How's that?
Marco said, talking to me, he's like, I know, I was so offended when he called me your buddy. Yeah, I'm just
That's one of my number one pet peeves. I do have to run though, but when someone calls me buddy, I want to punch them square in the nose.
I will say I've such a bad habit of calling people buddy, and it's
You want
in
a
part.
box? Is that
Well,
what
it's
you
in
want?
part. It's in part because of my father-in-law. He calls people buddy, and he's not meaning it in a mean way, but that's kind of rubbed off on me. So unfortunately, now I say buddy. So sorry, buddy.
See y'all.
See you, bud. Sorry.
Okay. Well, there you have it. I don't think Taco destroyed you like he said he was gonna do. I think you made taco salad out of them and ate it quite well. Where is your taco hat?
I should have brought it, man. I got distracted around lunchtime. I was having to go get my wife's car, get her oil changed, and a couple other things, so I wasn't able to do that. Yeah, if you'd like to watch the debate, if you missed it, you can go to my my YouTube channel. I've got it there. I've got it also in the link in my bio. So if you click the first link in my bio, it'll take you to it. So yeah, if you haven't seen the debate, I encourage you to watch the debate. I thought it was a good debate overall. I think it exposed several things in the faith alone side. So.
Oh, the poll results. Yeah, I was shocked. Well, like, granted, I don't know if it, granted, I don't know if that poll reached over to Taco side, but like it was at one point it was 90% Jake W and 10% Taco. Like it was unanimous. Like I was I was like, wow.
Well, I'm very appreciative of what people had to say in the poll, and I'm very appreciative of all the people feeding me answers in the comment section. I wouldn't have been able to do it without y'all.
I know.
And all the people, I appreciate Marco, CJ, Justin, my dad, everyone who was feeding me answers through the ear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate all of y'all.
Yeah, this is gonna get clipped, and then Taco's gonna make a video saying, "See, this is what Jake does."
Clip it, man. At this point, if that's his big thing, if he has to clip that, man, whatever.
Well, we said an hour and a half, but I think an hour did it.
I think so.
Yeah, man. Great job. Any other final? Jake debate NeedGod.net. That would be a good one. Have you reached out to Ryan?
I haven't reached out to Ryan. I know Gavin's been trying to get a debate with NeedGod.net, which he's got a big debate with Keith Foskey coming up. Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out Gavin. But if Gavin wants to pass off NeedGod.net, I'd be more than willing to, to hop in the ring with him.
Yeah. Is Gavin, is there any progress? Has he acknowledged your existence yet?
I'm not sure if he has for Gavin. I will say that's one thing. Again, it's difficult trying to get these guys' attention without sending multiple messages, and when you're not without them claiming you're harassing them. I had one guy comment. He left a comment for me asking for clarification for my view on Acts 16, which I appreciate that. I wasn't totally clear in my in the Q&A section. But he asked me the question on both Marco's channel and my channel. And he said, sorry to send it on two, or sorry to spam the message to you. And he, made a joke that, he was harassing me. And so point being, anywho, all the harassment stuff is crazy. And it's difficult trying to get in contact with these people without it being viewed as harassment. Sometimes people just want to get in contact with you. And the
Yeah.
tone isn't that bad.
I mean, how are these little pups gonna can get the attention with the big dogs like TacoTalks? Like, come on, how are we supposed to eat a big taco? Like,
Uh,
uh,
well, what I will say is this: how are we to keep these big dogs in check? That's more the thing. I I know Taco's got a big crowd. I know Taco has many followers, and I'm not trying to diminish any of that. But Taco's arguments are not the arguments of a big dog. Um, and many of the other people that people kind of promote on here are not the arguments of big dogs. Um, but they need to be put in check. And sometimes it's people who don't have a following are able to kind of put them in check. And so it's just difficult kind of balancing that out.
we could probably uh go forever. I just thought of a few more questions, but I think that's good for now.
Yeah.
Sadly, Taco's arguments of the guy who debates characters of his opponents and videos. Yeah, I've said he does a better job debating himself. Um,
Yeah.
well,
Unfortunately, I think
like,
Taco he's undefeated when he's debating himself.
yeah,
I'll say
yeah.
that. But
Well, Jake, this is fun. Uh,
absolutely, man. I appreciate it. And I'll be doing a another debate review here at some point, including my dad in that debate review because gotta bring in the big dogs for a debate review. But yeah, that'll be coming soon for those who are interested. And again, if you'd like to watch the debate and you weren't able to watch the debate, uh, you know, link is in my bio to that. But yeah, before we close out though, I did want to say I appreciate all the support from so many people here on TikTok, those outside of TikTok. Truly, it means the world to me. All the prayers, all the words of encouragement. Truly, it means a lot, and I'm so thankful to have this family in Christ here on TikTok. And so,
amen.
God bless you all.
One more thing before we close. Is there anything coming down the pike for your dad?
No,
Like,
not yet. Not yet. Maybe soon. Who knows?
uh, alright, well, I guess we could conclude that Jake is the winner and you made taco salad and we could go eat it now.
Well, I appreciate that, CJ.
Alright, well, I'll have to debate myself if that'll get him back in the arena. Oh boy. You
There you
know,
go.
why haven't I seen you do your first debate? You go after people on YouTube.
He
Uh,
did. He had a recent discussion with a former member of Churches of Christ on the topic of infant baptism.
really?
Yeah,
I
yeah, he did
missed
really
it.
well.
Nice.
And before that, he had a debate with a kind of debate discussion with an Eastern Orthodox priest.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
Marco said, "Me versus Mike on the identity of the Antichrist." It's
That's
Mike. That's funny.
funny.
For
Alright,
sure.
well,
All right.
alright. I'm gonna shut it down. Thank you
Okay.
all. And for those on my YouTube, remember friends, theology matters.